what is it that that the model you think likes, or what do you like about Texas?
Well, first off, what the model likes about Texas, especially, is the support staff. So,
Okay.
Steve Sarkisian isn't necessarily the greatest head coach. Okay, he's actually, as a head coach, he's the weak spot in that staff.
Welcome back to Hall of Fame College Football with Jason and the Coach. I'm your host, Jason Watkins, and if you love college football, you know you're in the right place. So before you forget, smash that red subscriber button, like our videos, and don't forget to ring the bell so you don't miss one moment of Hall of Fame College Football. Folks, we are going to get into part 2 of my chat with the CFB professor, Adam McClintock. He is the co-founder of Matrix Analytical, and broke down his summer preview with me on the SEC, Oklahoma. You saw the first one with USC Big Ten projections coming into the season for 2024. Now we're going to talk a little bit about Oklahoma and the expectations for OU, Texas, the SEC, and basically who's going to win moving forward. So without further ado, let's jump into it. In this business to begin with.
Well, it started about 2014. Me and my partner Dave Bartu, if you're familiar with Dave Bartu on Twitter, we started a database that started way back in 2010, and we track every single play of every single season since 2010. So, for example, if you're a defensive backs coach, we know what has happened to your defensive backs unit every time the ball has been in the air since 2010. And we grade you on every single play. How does your defensive back unit respond when the ball is in the air? Is it an interception? Is it a pass breakup? Is it caught? If it's caught, how many yards after the catch occurred? So every play is evaluated and graded and part of the coach's grade. We took that database, we presented it to a few coaches back in 2014, I think is when we got our first client. And from there, it just took off like wildfire. Athletic directors love it because it empowers them to make decisions. Head coaches love it because it empowers them to make decisions with their staff. And it also gives them an opportunity to make baselines and goals for their staff as well. So that's kind of how it started. And it's kind of, snowballed into some other things, but that's kind of the gist of how Matrix Analytical began.
Well, that's kind of you kind of got my gears kind of cranking in here right now, thinking about it too. Because as a coach, it seems like you would probably be able to, and even kind of self-scout kind of what you're doing as the coaching staff or whatever, or what, tendencies that you may have, things like that. That's probably a big part of it at this point, isn't it? With analytics, it's a huge part of the game at this point.
Exactly, it is. And that's you're on the right path there. Every year we give our clients a staff report card that tells them where their weaknesses are, where they need to improve, and especially now that the NCAA just passed the bylaw that's saying that analysts can be on the field and with instruction now. This is a big deal because now you can go out and you can hire guys who may not be great on the recruiting trail but are tacticians on the practice field. So, we have both. We have data on both sides of that equation. So it has really been valuable to our clients so far in this new landscape.
That is very cool. You said, and how many clients do you have? And you said you started off in 2014 with one. Mm-hmm. How many clients do you currently serve?
We have 17, I think. 17 currently right now. Throughout we have a client in every single major conference. And multiple in the Big Ten and SEC.
Wow, that's awesome. Is Oklahoma one of them?
No, sir. if you're listening, if Brent Venables is listening out there, hey, you know how to get a hold of us.
Absolutely. We'll definitely be passing that on. Well, I'm excited to hear about a lot of this stuff. I've been looking through, and I actually found you on that SEC podcast. You talked about your model itself. Talk to me a little bit about that and what this model has kind of become. I mean, your preview here, we're looking at your college football preview for the summer here. I also got to look through your spring preview as well. Some of the numbers, I mean, I think there's times that it makes a lot of sense, and sometimes you're like, well, wait a minute, But tell me kind of how this came about, it, and tell me. I love reading some of the stuff about how really close to the mark you guys continue to be year after year as far as your predictions are concerned and all that other stuff.
Yeah, so the preview is something that I started back in 2008, just for fun, off the side, while Matrix Analytical was kind of up and going. I was able to use, whenever I set out to solve a problem, I try to break it down in as few variables as I can get. Okay, and so this prediction model is what goes into it is returning production. What do you have returning? Okay,
right.
It's roster talent. What kind of talent do you have on your roster? Coaching efficiency, coaching staff efficiency, which kind of bleeds into our database on coaching staffs. It's and it's a little bit of home field advantage and just program trajectory over the past 3 to 5 years. So it's 5 variables, and it before the season starts, it typically hits around 73% correct straight up for the season. During the season, it updates itself. During the season, it actually updates itself. With every game that's played, and it gets closer to around 76% as the season progresses. So it's a fun project off the side. The goal was to make something completely, unbiased. And like you said, there's things that the model says that I'm like, yeah, that's not right. But a completely unbiased model, I shouldn't agree with it all the time, and I don't. There's some things I really agree with, and sometimes I'm like, yeah, that might not happen.
Well, I can think of one that I'll probably circle back to at some point as an Oklahoma guy
Okay.
that we're looking at going, what?
Mm-hmm.
but again, the math seems to not lie. And now, and your predictions for like the CFP top 25, you've been ahead of even FPI and some of these other guys for the last few years. Is that right?
Yeah, that's another thing we kind of do at Matrix Analytical is we kind of dove into how the committee goes about their process. It was laid out fairly early how they go through their process, and we actually provided information to some of the people on the board on the committee 2 or 3 years ago. So we kind of got a unique look inside at how they actually make the decisions. So using those two things, we were able to put together a model where it's extremely close. We're the most accurate model out there, I think, for the past was it 10 years now that the college football playoff poll's been out. For the past 10 years, we are off only, I think it's like 0.8 ranking spots per team for the entire top 25. So, and we've never missed a top 4. So it's pretty,
awesome.
Pretty nails, man. Yeah.
Pretty nails, yeah. And I guess that just goes to show that math always wins out, right?
Numbers are cold, man. They don't lie.
Yeah, they don't. Well, let's jump into the SEC. Obviously, this is a SEC program, so we want to talk some SEC ball, and in particular Oklahoma for this show. You've got them coming in as the number 6 roster talent ranking. That's in the country, obviously. Production national rank is at 112. Obviously, that part of that, it's the difference between the total team returning production is 64%, 64.9. You're showing it. Oklahoma, the offensive side not having as much returning production, which is obvious because of the offensive line, but number 2 in the country on defense. And it's definitely with Brent Venables, it's going to start on defense. But what are your expectations for Oklahoma coming into this first season in the Southeastern Conference along with Texas?
I think Oklahoma's set up well. This is going to be a very typical Brent Venables tough, hard-nosed football team. I think that defense returning so many starters and so many key producers on that side of the ball. They're going to come in and they're going to be adjusting chin straps in the SEC pretty quickly. I think. I have Oklahoma going 9-3, which is good for a tie for fifth in the conference. I think with a freshman quarterback and a rebuilt offensive line, that's kind of a really good case scenario for Sooner fans right now. I really like the offensive coordinator hire. One thing that concerns me about Seth Luttrell is in the SEC you have to be able to run the football somewhat. He kind of scares me a little bit on that front because you have to have somewhat of a running game.
Right, I get it. Okay.
Yeah. And even Josh Heupel at Tennessee last year, they ran the football first. That's what
Absolutely.
Tennessee has had the reputation of being an air raid, but they ran the football first because Heupel realized, hey, in this conference, you've got to be able to line up and run the ball when you have to. That's my only fear for Oklahoma coming into this year is what is that offensive side of the ball going to look like? Are they going to be able to do that with a rebuilt offensive line? If there's anybody who's able to get an offensive line together quickly enough to do it, it's Bill Bedenbaugh, who's one of the best offensive line coaches in the country. So I'm anxious to see along the line of scrimmage how they match up, especially on the offensive side of the ball. They have some really young studs coming on the defensive line. Those guys are going to be fun to watch develop under Brent Venables' system. But I all in all, I think this is going to be a fun first season for Oklahoma in the SEC.
Yeah, I think so, and I think most Oklahoma fans are coming into this. You do have the crazies that expect them to go 12-0 every year, which is wild. But I think that 9-3, 10-2 is one of those. I think that's kind of where I've always been. I've come into this thinking that probably 2025 is probably their best opportunity to really make a run at everything because of the fact that you'd have a little more seasoning on Jackson Arnold. It kind of adjusted a little bit, and plus a lot of these big time games in this schedule, which you've got Oklahoma having 6 toss-up games, which I can see. Most of these are road games, and so to go on the road in the SEC, that's a tough thing to do. I know that's a big part of your model as well. So, what are your? I think most Oklahoma fans, I would say, would understand even an 8-4 year. I think, but but 9-3, I think is. I was glad to see it on here that was what you kind of had it at, and you even have their record ceiling a little higher than you have Texas's, which I know comes in even a little bit higher. Oklahoma fans, we don't have a ton of respect for Texas, but seeing that you have them at 11-1, but I guess that would be my question. There is that what is it that that the model you think likes, or what do you like about Texas?
Well, first off, what the model likes about Texas, especially, is the support staff. So, Steve Sarkisian isn't necessarily the greatest head coach. Okay, he's actually, as a head coach, he's the weak spot in that staff as the head coach.
What the hell did you just say? Could you repeat that?
He's actually, as a head coach, he's the weak spot in that staff.
What did you say? What did you say?
Coach, he's the weak spot in that staff.
Don't look at me. I've been telling you for years.
Coach. As the play caller, he's an excellent play caller. Pete Kwiatkowski is one of the best defensive coordinators in the country, and the rest of their position coaches are top notch. He has put together a very, very rock solid staff. Texas has never been lacking in talent. It's never been an issue there. So it's just being able to put it together in order to get it done. He was able to do that somewhat last year, but Sarkisian he's not the model has him as kind of a middle of the road head coach. Okay, so it's can he get out of the way and let his coordinators do the work and not make any funky calls to cost them a game, because Texas got a much more favorable schedule than Oklahoma, I believe. I'll have to go back and look at it, but I remember thinking,
yes. Where Oklahoma plays Ole Miss, they get Mississippi State. Where Oklahoma plays Missouri, they're playing Florida, I guess. And I think Florida is probably a little better than a lot of people think they are. They got a brutal schedule too, though. But all the tough games that Oklahoma gets, Alabama, obviously they are playing Georgia. But aside from that, you get Tennessee, they're playing Kentucky. And some of these,
they get Vanderbilt.
They get Vanderbilt. Oklahoma's going on the road to LSU. So it's kind of one of those. It's rough. And then on the road at Ole Miss, most of the big games it feels like Oklahoma is going to have are going to be road games. And I would think that it's their first road game right off the bat. I feel like you should beat Auburn, but I always hear about how crazy it is to go play at Jordan-Hare.
Yeah.
But and obviously Hugh Freeze is a heck of a coach. We know that. But I do feel like that's one of the toss-ups that you have there. You've only got them favored to win by 2. You've got the point spread is 2 there. So where how good do you feel about them getting in and winning 8 or 9 games or even more in that first year for OU?
I like you said, it's a new conference. All these places they're going are brand new. New opponents. There's no past film, no history on these opponents. But you know what? The same can be said for the opponents with OU and Texas as well. They've never seen these teams before either. So, I like OU to get to 8 or 9 wins for sure. But above that, I think you're starting to ask a little much in the first year, especially with the new. And this all kind of hinges on how well the offensive line comes together.
Sure.
How quickly are they able to gel? How quickly can Jackson Arnold get his feet underneath him in a conference known for pass rushers? It's all those things. If they can come out and they can do an adequate job on offense, I think the defense is going to be good enough to carry him a few games. So we'll just have to see how that comes together. If that comes to fruition, then I think 9-10 games is possible. But if you're looking at kind of it not quite coming all together as Oklahoma fans would like to, then maybe you're looking at 7 or 8.
Okay. Yeah, and I think it's fair. I mean, I think that's pretty much where even a lot of us guys that are bullish on Oklahoma, and as I said, I'm one of the guys that's kind of targeted 2025 as that year, because these theoretically top level teams that are in the SEC, you're going to catch them at home in the second year. I do think some of it moved up when you got guys like Billy Bowman and Danny Stutzman coming back when they could have went to the draft, so I think that may have moved it up. I can see the path to 10. I still think, I think it's a lot to ask for. I guess my question for you would be your model grade Brent Venables, though.
Brent Venables, okay, this is his, he's still early on in his tenure. What we'd like to see is in order for a coach's grade to become solid, we call it solid, we'd like to see 4 years of data on him before he becomes solid. We really like the bounce back year he had last year. That showed a lot. And that's more along the lines of, I think, what to expect under Brent Venables than in his first year. I expect his trajectory to keep going up, and the model would look more favorably upon him if he goes 9-3 this year, for sure.
Well, and him as a defensive coach, I guess you probably had him pretty high up the list if you were ranking him as a DC, though, right?
Absolutely. No, he was the number 1 defensive coordinator in the country before he stepped down and went into a head coach. So if
you're never going to get his hands out of the defense. There's never a time that I think you'll get his hands out of that.
No, and I really love that Zach Alley hire, by the way. That's a whole other. He was another up and comer that we had really high for OU. That was a really, really good hire. I know some people were kind of questioning who is this Zach Alley guy. He's good. Right. He's one of those guys you don't need to worry about. But like I said, Venables, he's what Lincoln Riley was on offense. Brent Venables is on defense. Right. He's a defensive mind. You're not going to out scheme him on that side of the ball.
Yeah, and I think the good news for OU is that they've recruited on another level than what Lincoln was able to do when he was, well, not just at USC now, but certainly what he was doing at Oklahoma. They're continuing to do very well on the offensive side, but they've done unbelievably well on the defense. So I think, that's why there's that expectation for them to continue kind of moving forward. And I think most people are excited about the SEC move. What are your expectations overall? I know you talked to you mentioned Georgia. Is that's obviously your pick in projection in this league to win the conference?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I have Georgia winning the conference. I think they're it's going to be one of those years where I think they're a tier above everybody else this year. They just have too much coming back. That staff is too good right now. They've really got it rolling. I don't think they, I don't ever like to say I don't think they're going to get challenged, because I don't think that's accurate either. But I think it's going to be one of those years where Georgia's going to be in a tier, and there's going to be a tier of teams chasing Georgia. So especially after last year when they were left out of the playoff. I mean, we've all heard the Kirby Smart recordings. He's going to have them fired up to play about every game this year. So
does your model have a pissed off part to it? Is there something about how pissed off you are in there?
It should, it should.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And so you've got your team power rankings. You've got Georgia finishing number 1. Then you've got, and they're really close after that. You've got Texas, Alabama, LSU, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, all within 3 to 4 points of each other. So it really kind of is a toss up after that. I see what you're saying with the tier, huh?
Yeah, it's the SEC is a different type of animal right now. There's a lot of teams that are grouped right there together, and that's why the home field advantage is such a big deal in the SEC, because everybody has talent. I mean, everybody's got playmakers everywhere. So
absolutely. Well, and I guess Alabama, let's talk about them too. Kalen DeBoer, really good coach. I mean, he's got a great record, a track record, comes into a great situation as far as you've got them number 1 as far as their roster talent rankings is still number 1 for Alabama. In fact, yeah, Georgia's all at 3. So I guess 2 would be obviously Ohio State, but Alabama's still having that much. Do you see them taking a step back here? Kalen
DeBoer is we have him in our system as one of the top 5 coaches in the country.
Okay.
So Alabama did well to go get Kalen DeBoer. Our biggest question was, how is he going to do in the South somewhere he's never really coached? He's always been a northern guy at Indiana, at Sioux Falls in South Dakota, at Washington, Fresno State even. This is a different, and I think he's answered those questions pretty quickly in Tuscaloosa. He's going to fit in fine. He's going to pick up and take the lead here. It's always hard to follow somebody like Nick Saban. Is he going to be like Nick Saban? I would probably venture to say no, but he's going to be a very successful coach at Alabama, especially with all the talent he has.
Yeah, it almost feels like they're what they weren't in the last couple of years, because I think that if you saw a weakness in it, it was definitely on the offensive side of the ball the last couple of years, right?
Mm-hmm.
If they can, I don't know that they withstand what they were defensively the last few years, but I think that they may take a huge step forward offensively, right?
Mm-hmm. It depends on if Kalen is involved in the offense or not. Now you remember he had his offensive coordinator leave for the NFL shortly after he took the Alabama job. We love the guy who went to the NFL. That guy was a very, very, very good offensive coordinator. We're not as high on Nick Sheridan. So we'll see how that plays out. I think Kalen in his first year, and especially somebody
sounds like he's calling plays. I think he's going to call the plays the first year.
Yeah, that's what we've heard as well. So we have Kalen DeBoer as heavily involved in the offense. If that's so, Kane Womack is a very good defensive coordinator. Very good defensive coordinator. If you remember when Indiana was relevant about 5 years ago, it's because Kalen DeBoer was calling the offense and Kane Womack was calling the defense. They made Indiana relevant. So if they can make Indiana relevant in the Big Ten, they're gonna have a lot of fun with Alabama's talent. They just will. And that's going to be a fun
kind of where I've been. It's like, good grief, you're going to give a coach like this a roster like that? Oh,
Yeah.
It's brutal, So yeah, okay, cool. Well, man, I know we kind of got to let you get out of here, but I really appreciate you jumping on with us here, Adam. And anything else that we should know about the season coming up? You got a prediction on the national champion, or are you gonna make us wait on that?
Well, no, I think Georgia takes it this year. I think they, it's kind of a chalk pick. I realize that. I wish I had something more fun to throw out there for you, but I think Georgia wins the title. Watch out for Iowa to make the playoff. Watch that closely. That's maybe a curveball to watch that nobody's talking about. Watch Iowa as a possible playoff team.
Hey, I like the idea that Oklahoma, if they get to 9-3, would that put them in the playoff, you think?
They would be in the conversation. It depends on what the games look like.